Ryan, are you recording?
I'm ready.
All right, we are live and back with another episode of the Strength and Philosophy Cast. For those of you watching along on video, you are blessed to see Doug S. Got to keep his name private. He's a government employee. He is a longtime weightlifting competitor. I might humble brag here for him and just let you know that he is the 94 kilo Indiana state champion in 2016.
Oh no, wasn't it 15?
15?
14?
There was a lot of bomb outs. I don't remember what the numbers were, but Apty was here training last summer, and he didn't find it quite as funny as I did when I introduced him and said these are two champions sharing a moment. I don't know why a world champion wouldn't want to be compared to that.
It was definitely lost in translation. The joke fell flat to Apty. Yeah, the key to success is finding a sport that no one else is doing. And then hopefully the few people that are better than you just don't come.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good shot.
It's what I've been. Yeah, I've ridden that for a long time.
Now, you know, people out there might know you from like CrossFit Games 1 when you were on the reserve team member backup, but you still somehow managed to out dumbbell snatch Nick Urankar.
Listen, it's the same thing. It's the mediocrity. I wallow in that mediocrity level. I mean, if there's an alternate spot to be taken, I like to fill it.
So give us the lowdown on beating Nick Urankar.
Well,
because you know he's listening.
No, I'm sure he's not. I grew up with Nick from elementary school, and he's beaten me at everything in my life, athletically, for the better part of 20 years. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but yes, the dumbbell snatch, I believe it was 2011, 2012 regional. My time did beat his, and I let him know it a few times, but
it's always good to keep him humble.
Obviously.
We had a guy that trained here, Josh Jones, now strength and conditioning coach at Vanderbilt. He played football with Nick at Indiana State.
Yeah.
And Josh was here lifting, good lifter, solid 170 kilo, clean and jerker.
Yeah, I've seen him, he's good.
But he got text messages from his former teammates that said, dude, you're being outlifted by the fucking kick. It's like,
yeah, in his defense, though, Nick was the strongest kicker, I think, that's ever graced this
the earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, so, Doug, we're going to get right into it. Today we're going to be primarily covering just all aspects of weightlifting, scandal, rumors, and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of some things that's happened with Tomas Ion. Ion.
Very well done.
Yeah, I just butchered that. But anyway, the president of the IWF. So a couple days ago, there was a slip-up, supposedly, on social medias. And they announced temporarily that Worlds had been moved.
I'd seen that, yeah.
Conveniently to the home country of the most doped weightlifter. Actually, I'm going to take that back.
No.
Not the most doped weightlifter, but of the most notoriety.
Yeah,
the most popular.
Most famous, yeah.
But they're going to move the Worlds to Kazakhstan, and this would line up well with the valiant return of Ilya to the sport that he was supposedly banned from.
Well, I'm waiting with bated breath on Ilya's return. Wasn't it in Almaty in 2014 also?
Right. Which makes me think that it could be a typo or like somebody just like let the ball drop. But it was on two different well-respected social media platforms, and then the posts were then redacted and taken down. Mm-hmm. And I immediately text another anonymous source of mine. Said, hey, is this a thing? He said, yeah. He said that he saw it too, but that had been taken down. And this brings us to like the first interesting point I would like to discuss, and that is, has the IWF effectively done anything to clean up drug use in the sport of Olympic weightlifting?
Well, I think they have. I mean, they've at least tried, but I don't know if they've done a very good job of it. I mean, how many doping tests, how many doping violations were hit in 2016 at Rio?
Enough to basically get
ban
the USOC to tell you, get the hell out of here. And that's the thing is, so Ion has posted a letter on the IWF website, which it's up there and you can read it. And it basically pats himself on the back.
Why not?
I mean, you know, you got to be your biggest fan. Basically pats himself on the back and says, you know, hey, we've done everything to clean up this sport. He mentions that in Anaheim, when the World Championships were here, that there were 236 or 37 blood and urine tests and only 6 positives. You know, like and he's using that as a big measure of success. But the reality of it is the biggest group of cheaters in the world weren't there.
Right.
Like the top 9 most offensive countries didn't participate.
Who take all the medals before that. They're no longer there.
Correct.
And then there's 6 positive tests.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic.
And not only are they not there competing, they're in their training halls breaking world records by 10 kilos in some instances in the clean and jerk.
Yeah.
Like a training PR.
I love training PRs.
Yeah, it's
Just
the best.
as an aside, I love training PRs.
You can only wonder like how much tea is pumping through the veins.
Oh, I think a lot of tea.
So, you know, so Ion's saying that they've cleaned it up. They laid out a roadmap, okay, for Russia to basically get back in.
Right.
First of all, let's back up. I'm of the opinion that if the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, wasn't embarrassed at the 2016 Rio Games, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
No, I don't think that at all.
And they basically had egg on the face, were embarrassed that there's this much doping scandal in the news about the Olympics, because the Olympics are supposed to be about fair play, equality, unity, all the original envisionments of Pierre de Coubertin, right? Which was, in 1896.
Yeah.
Like nothing's changed politically since 1896, right? And so it's supposed to be all about fair play, and it's not. So it's a little bit ridiculous that the IOC is offended, because most people can step back and realize that snatching 220 kilos is not really
humanly
it's not
possible.
normal.
No.
Right? Like that's not like the guy that works at Lowe's who on the weekend is an amateur athlete just snatches 220 kilos.
Which I love as someone who does that. Like I appreciate that guy, the guy that works at Lowe's that comes in and is the guy that's trying to snatch triple digits. But I understand that that's a normal person.
Right. He's a normal human being.
Human being snatches in that realm.
Right. He does 100 kilos.
Right. You don't. I mean, maybe there's the anomaly. I don't think so, though, where you just walk in and even after decade plus of training, snatch 220 kilos just naturally.
Right. I mean,
that's fantastic. I mean, I don't know.
Right. That's
color me impressed.
Well, okay. So I mean, Lasha right now is more or less the golden-haired child of weightlifting, right? He's like the one that can do no wrong because there's this huge void with.
Because all of our heroes
Russia
got taken down.
Yeah, right. With, Russia, basically all the Eastern European countries gone and the Middle East gone, right? So now there's they need to fill that void. But we've conveniently forgotten that Lasha's already served a ban.
Yeah, he's already served his 2 years.
Right.
He served from 13 to 15, I believe, right?
Yeah. He's been suspended once. And he's not, he looks 40, but he's not.
How old is he, 24?
He's in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta wonder, right?
Right.
The biggest, and not to say that you couldn't change your ways. I firmly believe that Sarah Robles competes clean.
Right.
I feel like that's a reasonable thing.
Right.
But there's a lot of countries that have a strong history and a repeated pattern of not competing clean. So why would we think that this time's any different? And how Georgia missed that cutoff of being banned blows my mind, because it's right next to Russia. It's right there, right in the mix.
How many countries got banned? 9?
9.
And they got off.
So
Azerbaijan was hit, Bulgaria was hit,
Uzbekistan
was hit, all of the
Iran.
All of the countries that you think.
I'm pretty sure Bulgaria doesn't have weightlifting anymore, which is kind of sad.
I know it is. It's
I think they've been
all we have left are the Iron Mine videos from the 80s now.
God bless
them.
God bless Randall Strauss. Give that man a shout out. So this brings back, this is to the question of how did we get to the point of, or are we making progress in cleaning up the sport? So I'm arguing no.
Right.
Right. And I feel like pretty strongly about that. I think a couple things have happened that are pretty good. If your goal is to keep the Olympics in the sport, Ion should be president of the IWF. If your goal is to clean up the sport, Ion should not. Okay, so he's going to be able to keep the no matter how bad it gets. And I think this is why he was reelected. No matter how bad he gets, everybody on the NGB level understands that man knows where all the bodies are buried. He can go to all the dark spots, and he can keep that. He has the dirt on the IOC.
Right.
So he can keep the sport in the Olympics. Now, the man had pet snow leopards and a bulletproof limo, right? Which was much needed because there's rumors that he's had like Russian hit contracts on his life and shit like that. But you don't do that on a humble public servant. As a public servant.
I know.
You are a public servant.
You don't have bulletproof limos.
You don't get a snow leopard. Like just when you go to PetSmart and get a fucking snow leopard.
You know what this public servant has? Pug. Like a.
What if you had what if your pug was dyed snow leopard? Does that count?
My pug, yeah. My pug is from the streets.
He couldn't do it. So from the hood. So if you're going to clean up the sport in terms of trying to get drugs out of weightlifting, you probably start with who the president of the IWF is. And then you got to ask yourself, do you give a shit to have your sport in the Olympics? Okay, and this is hard for me because I'm a huge fan of the Olympics. From those of you who have heard other podcasts, in the Jug Life podcast where we talked about it, I pursued this path in PhD-ness.
Along with five other
people in the U.S. It's a huge booming field. And I had a lot of interest and still do have a lot of interest in the Olympic Games and kind of the progression of it. And so I feel strongly about the Olympic Games. I'm more along the lines of I liked how it was in 1896 versus how it is today. But you have to ask yourself, do you want the sport to remain in the Olympics? What do you lose if it's not in the Olympics? So obviously you don't have the competition every 4 years. You don't have the ceremony. You don't have the prestige of competing in the Olympics. But that being said, you still have the World Championships. And the World Championships keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll make the point that one of the most well-known Russian weightlifters, Anatoly Pisarenko, everybody's seen him squatting in a diaper like 800 pounds, never competed in the Olympics.
And I mean, especially with the cap that the Olympics have for your spots, the World Championships are so much more competitive, in my humblest of opinion, because you have that the full team is there. I went down to Houston and watched. I drove down to Houston from Indianapolis, which is quite a haul. And
hot.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was also the tallest person in the entire hotel. It was the only time in my whole life. I felt like I was at the center in the NBA. I was the tallest person in any Starbucks line. So great. But I mean, you see that full-on team there, and it was awesome. At the time, I mean, very small. Nobody was there to watch it, which was even better for me.
Heck yeah.
But I mean, you have those Olympics. You only have so many spots. So. And I'm just, on a side note, I'm just a fan of I don't like just the medal for the total. I love the medals for the discipline and the snatch and the clean and jerk and the total. Yeah. Just another, as an aside.
Yeah.
But
I think that, with the new rules and the new weight classes and the way things are going. So when they go, there's going to be 10 categories, but when they go to the Olympics, they're only going to be seven, which is similar to what wrestling and boxing have done. The rumor is that they're going to lop the second from the last of each end of the spectrum. So if it was like the current classes, you'd get rid of the 62s and the 105s on the men's side, the 53s and the 90s on the women's side, and they're going to take one out of the middle. Okay, and part of that is, you need to take something out of the bell curve. I've also heard that people want to take out some of the more heavily doped drug classes, which just seems like a dumb reason.
I mean, it doesn't make no
because
sense.
you're going to just
Yeah.
be doing drugs in a different weight category.
Yeah, what are you going to lop out the 94s and the 85s?
Right.
I mean,
so you're going to go from 77s to supers.
yeah. I was a big fan of going. I didn't like the 70 for the women 75 straight to the 75 plus. There needed to be something in the middle. So I was a fan of doing the 90 or doing something in between the 75 and the supers for women. I don't know. Do you have any? What do you think the new classes are going to look like? I know you can't think exactly. But what do you think?
I mean, I think that in general, okay, so if you look at the weight classes just as a bell curve, right? Everybody can conceptualize that the majority of humans are in the 77 to 85 kilo range, right? That's just like normal. But as humans progress and evolve, it's going to move farther and farther right.
Right.
That's how
you're going to get bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's evolution.
I mean, how many
if you don't believe in that?
How many Americans are in the 56 category?
Like none, right? So, but that's a global perspective because you got to keep in mind that you're the tallest person in the world. Right.
I had Hennequin, the 85 for France, and then Tien Tao. They were like in Starbucks. Yeah. I got to post them up any day of the week.
And Hennequin has huge biceps.
He's enormous.
Insane. Looks like a bodybuilder.
Yeah, he does.
The British Eurosport chick always trashes him. The upper body's useless in this sport. Yeah, it's not, but
she's great. I love her.
Yeah, well, you just love her because when she flamed Buff Mendez on his 180 opener or whatever, told him he should have figured it out in the back room. Yeah, she doesn't care. She's pretty ruthless.
She's ruthless.
So, give me an argument here that the sport has cleaned up.
I think the U.S. and Western Europe has cleaned up. I mean, but I don't know how much you can argue that like Eastern European and Asian countries have cleaned up. I mean, the U.S. is. What are some of the numbers? I mean, you have lifters that are being tested here, and they're being tested all the time.
Right.
I think it obviously creates an uneven playing field when your country is testing constantly, and other countries are not. I also think that when you bring in, I think that now you have that kind of thing in those other countries that are not testing, so it's an uneven playing field.
Right.
But
so it's interesting to look at the roadmap for Russia to get back in. For IWF to let him in. So IWF gave him these rules, okay? And I dug into this. I don't know how I got to the link. I got it from the IWF site, but it laid out I'm going to say 20 to 30 bullet points that Russia or RUSADA had to comply with.
Right.
And my understanding is that they're still hung up on 2 bullet points. They didn't say which 2. Okay. And so I kind of dug through them to see, what the hell are they asking them to do? And there's a couple that stuck out to me. One was the fact that they're demanding that RUSADA be independently financed and have no government backing, which seems like an impossibility for that country.
Absolutely.
I don't understand.
It's embedded in the culture.
100%. It's fucking socialism, right? This is how these things work.
That's how it works.
Right. The government props everything up.
Right.
Right. Capitalism does not succeed in a country where faulty businesses are propped up by government. It's a fucking fact. So and then that just comes back to the question is, okay, they're just going to move the money in a loop, right? So we haven't really changed anything, right? So this is to appease. So I can't imagine that is something that Russia's hung up on. It was interesting though that during this time, 2 guys. Well, I use that. It could be girls. 2 peoples from UK's anti-doping agency are on the ground in Russia, and they are running all of their out-of-season testing and these sort of things, and they're trying to establish some sort of compliance and stuff like that. There's not supposed to be any tests done by RUSADA without the eyes on from these 2 UK guys, and as part of their penalty, Russia had to pay for those 2 guys not only their salaries but their living expenses, their travel, all those kinds of things. But what I found interesting, and this would be a point that I want to talk about, it may appear that Icarus was a very good documentary talking about.
It's good.
If you haven't watched it, watch it. But it talks about basically beating the WADA test and the Abrams bottles and shoving piss through a hole in the wall, right? And biological profiles and freezing urine and shipping it across the seas, whatever. So it's pretty in depth. But in this roadmap, it basically laid out that the TEU, so the therapeutic exemption usage rules that Russia was playing by had to be changed, which makes me wonder. Maybe that was a bigger deal than we were led to believe.
Yeah.
Because why would you put that in there?
So you think they were on?
I think
therapeutic use
yeah.
exemptions.
I think it probably was quote unquote therapeutic use, but the doctor was just like,
because there's nothing like a 21-year-old that needs therapeutic use exemptions for testosterone.
correct.
Stands
And my point is like, what's the in a lot of these countries, like the U.S. has like a pretty big masters population. It's people that have disposable income. They might have been competitive. They might have found the sport late through CrossFit. They're traveling around. They're having a good time. But that masters community isn't the same everywhere.
No.
Right? So, for example, like China doesn't have a big masters, like one of the largest weightlifting populations.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of stuff that's not government sponsored or like funded training programs. And so it makes me think that they weren't probably monitoring, Russia's probably not monitoring a masters weightlifting competition, right? So it makes me think that they might have been doing, TEU as a way to get around more or less failing a test. So you just say, oh yeah, I'm on all this shit because I got low T.
Yeah.
I'm 19, and therefore these test
especially-
results are null and void.
Now again, I'm not a doctor, but as you when you have steroid use, when you have that use as you age up, then your natural testosterone is going to drop. So when you get to that late 20s, you need the testosterone, the TRT and things like that to go through, because now your body won't produce it anymore. So yeah, I mean, and as you were talking about with the masters population here, I know of several people that try to get therapeutic use exemptions that
Just denied
because I mean USADA is not going to let that fly,
which is 100% absolutely ridiculous. Like this would be my beef with USADA and whoever's making the calling the shots or what. I don't know how much input. I'm not privy to know how much input USA Weightlifting has on to who's being tested, other than like maybe it's like their registered testing pool, obviously. But as far as like when you're at like meets, how they're picking who the randoms are. For whatever reason, we get tested, meaning Lift Lab athletes. Like, there hasn't been a single meet we've been to in the last 3 years where we haven't had somebody get tested.
Yeah, I think the testing of masters is ridiculous.
It's silly because it's silly for a few reasons. One, it's a waste of fucking money. Because you're really trying to find out people that are going to go compete on the international level for medals that world championships and Olympics and things like that, and you want them to be the ones that are representing the U.S. and competing clean.
Right.
So it's ridiculous in that, and it's a waste. Like, tests are expensive, so it's a waste of money. And we've had 30 9-year-old males get tested. And I saw a guy that was like this was at the AO Series in Grand Rapids. He was in his late 40s. I saw him get tested. Point number 2 is ridiculous. If these dudes just want to have a higher quality of life, and you're telling them like you can't compete in the sport of weightlifting because you want to try to have sex.
Well, I mean, you're talking to those, like you said earlier. The testing should be for those elite level athletes that are going to be competing on the international, or maybe even the higher end of the national scale. It's not for the 55-year-old guy
in the G session.
Yeah, who is in the G session, who is snatching his age, doing the best he can,
getting overturned
by a jury.
Still just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's not for them. I mean, like you said, the money issue is one thing. It's just, is that really is that really the best use of time and resources?
There's other implications for it too, right? And like, this is where the part that I'm a little like conflicted on. I think they should just give the damn therapeutic exemption. Like, if you're legitimately have low T and you're 35 years old or whatever the hell, whenever it starts to drop, and then that's fine, right? Because, and how many 35-year-olds are really competing for titles other than Colin Burns, right? Like, there's always going to be a one-off.
There's always the anomaly. But 90% of people that when you cross that threshold, I mean, unless you're Barry Bonds, you're not getting better at 38, which I think we can all understand. I mean,
you're not 74.
You're not competing on the international stage or competing for those scarce spots on the international stage.
Right.
It's just a waste of time and resource.
Yeah, 100%. The implications for it are like, supposedly. I mean, this is kind of another one of these rules that is or isn't enforced, and you can ask, are you cleaning things up or not? But there's a USADA rule that if you have a positive test, you also cannot coach.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this has like been brought up multiple times. My understanding is there's been multiple complaints filed against Norick and Jenny, right? And first of all, there's a lot of people in the shadows that just hate certain weightlifters, right? And they just want to like bring them down.
Right.
My understanding is that Norick and Jenny have been complained on a couple times, but somewhere along in the bylaws it states that as long as he's not explicitly telling her to change something, that's how they're defining coaching.
Okay.
Which seems really odd.
Yeah.
So you could definitely make a program, you could suggest ways to properly lift, but you just couldn't say
You can't be on the like the bio. You can't be on the bio as the
right
as the registered
You can't be in the
coach.
warm-up room.
You can't be in the warm-up room.
You can be there watching.
Okay.
If you and you can be in the crowd. In fact, I know that the last few meets that Buff Mendez has been at, he's tried to go in the back room, I believe, with his girlfriend or his fiance or wife or whoever it is that lifts for bros or out there and the whole thing. He's been escorted to leave.
Really?
Right? Like multiple times.
See, that's just. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just. I don't understand it. It's just.
I definitely don't think that testing the masters population is a good use of time. Because at the end of the day, you're asking somebody like to choose quality of life over weightlifting.
Yeah.
Right? And I get it that professional sports pretty much ruined a lot of progressive uses for testosterone, HGH, those sort of things. Like, I understand. I see how it played out in the media and stuff like that. I do think it'll swing back, but in the meantime,
there'll be a self correction, kind of like a self correction marketplace. It'll
Always.
self correct. But you're right. I just don't see the need. I mean, I just don't understand. I don't understand why a 55-year-old person who is using testosterone or something for quality of life, or just because they want to lift more, they're not making the international stage. They're not representing the country. There's no reason to test that person.
Right.
There's also no reason to overturn a 3 white light.
Dude, I agree. I mean, the thing about it is we know that, we know that it's going to happen. Like, it's going to happen. A master's lifter is going to test positive. I mean, they could come from Lift Lab.
Right.
Like, you don't know. You never know what somebody's doing. Okay, so, and then it's what do you want to enforce, and where does your code of ethics, and what do you feel like the punishment should be? I'll also make this point. I don't remember which American Open, but Danny Lair tested positive. Okay, the significance of that is, one, he was a Masters. In my opinion, shouldn't have been tested.
Right.
2, his company is a sponsor for USA Weightlifting and is still a vendor at meets. It's Caffeine and Kilos.
I had no idea.
Caffeine and Kilos, they paid at one point.
Well,
now,
I knew they were. I had no idea that he was tested positive as a.
He's on a ban.
I had no idea.
He's on a ban. But it's like, obviously when you show up and set up a booth, you give USA Weightlifting money.
Hey, they'll take the money.
I mean, so it's like
they know which side's the bread's butter.
Right. And I kind of like it. I don't know if I necessarily mind, but it definitely seems like there's some gray area to decide on what you want to enforce and what you don't want to enforce. The other thing I checked about this is if you test positive in another sport, you're banned from coaching in a different sport. So, for example, if you had a track and field, or if you had a master's weightlifter that tested positive that also coached track and field, like USA Track and Field, they would be banned in the USA Track and Field sport as well.
So just blanket ban, test positive.
If you are in a sport that has a contract with USADA, that is my understanding.
Okay.
You're banned across all sports.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I asked. I sent him an email. I want to bring in a guy that's banned in another sport. He said, can't hire that guy.
I mean, just to lay it. I mean, I'm all for leveling the playing field. USADA's testing all of our athletes. I mean, that's great. It's awesome. I just don't understand. I'm always going back to the time and resource. What is the best way, the best usage of the resources and time of USA Weightlifting, USADA, WADA, everything? Is it really necessary to test some of these people that have no? You got to call it as it is. They have no chance at a international stage.
Zero
chance. Why are you spending money and wasting time on that?
Yeah, take the top 5 in every category.
Top 5
spend all
every
your money
category,
there.
and that's who you're looking at.
Right.
Making sure that they're clean. When they go on the international stage, they're representing the country. They're not going to come back.
They're not going
they're not going to make you look like idiots.
Right.
They're not going to embarrass you.
And in that scenario, the IOC is happy.
Absolutely.
The USOC is
Everybody's
happy. Right? And because the other part of it too is, you can also make the argument that like the message from the IOC is a little fucked up because, okay, you put all these tests in play, you caught a whole bunch of people cheating, and now guess what? We're going to punish you. We might kick your sport out of the Olympics for catching these people.
Yeah.
So then the message is conflicting, right? And that's why I think it goes back to the point that it's more or less an issue of embarrassment, right? Because, if you really think about it, that's a conflicting message. It's telling you don't try so hard to clean up your sport.
I'll tell you what I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of and I could be, I don't know how you feel on this. I'm not a fan of bringing back the 2008 samples and the 2012 samples.
Right. Right. Different ballgame.
Listen, if you pass the test in 2008, you pass the test.
Right.
I don't like that you then come back and retroactively ban.
Correct.
8 years later and take away gold medals. I mean, everybody, you've already gotten all the kind of the spoils of your victory.
Right.
Why are you going to come back and take the medal?
Right. It's tough.
I don't know. I know it might be a minority opinion. I'm not a fan of the retroactive. You give the test, they pass the test, and move on.
Right. Adam Nelson has talked about this. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a shot putter, and he never won a medal. He was really good in the U.S. He was adamant on competing clean, and he was awarded a medal after a bunch of retroactive tests.
Yeah.
And so, but then they were obviously you don't have your ceremony.
Right, where they mailed it to him?
Well, no, they actually did a nice thing. They took him out to the track and field championships in Eugene, and they gave him his own ceremony, which was nice. But the things that he was saying, he was like, look, I always knew in my heart of hearts that I put my best effort into this thing, and I did the best that I could, and I competed a way that I felt good about. And he's like, honestly, that's all that mattered.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. I mean, you're competing. You're going kind of with the spirit of the Olympics. You're doing the best you can. You're playing the even playing field. You're playing clean. It sucks.
I mean, we agree that you can have drug-tested sport,
right,
or non-drug tested sport, but you can't have drug-free sport.
No,
right. And
somebody's always going to be finding some way to kind of cut the corners.
I can make a recommendation for a book to our avid listeners. Game of Shadows.
Yeah.
It's about Barry Bonds and Balco and the whole thing. And basically, if you want to make designer drugs, apparently what you do is you get on and you look at all the patents that have been filed on drugs that are related to cancer and muscle wasting. And once they file a patent, there's a chemical formula that you can concoct with from my understanding, fucking Victor Conti was like a paper salesman.
Yeah,
he dropped out of high school. So basically, with a high school biology class, you can make elite drugs by following the damn.
You can make the cream in the clear.
And it was like Dan Duchesne, I think, wrote a whole book on this, and he's like,
he was his guy from Illinois or Missouri,
exactly. God, just shitting on the Midwestern values, by the way, but. So you go on there, you find out what the chemical makeups are, and then you get on the Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
What is the biggest, largest retailer? It's not Alibaba. Brian, what is it? You're a young kid.
What?
The largest retail website you can buy shit real cheap.
Bodybuilding?
No.
What are you talking about?
Azerbaijan, not Azerbaijan.
You're not
that's
talking
a
about
country.
Amazon, right?
It's
The Silk Road?
No, it's like Alibaba or some shit like that.
You know about the Amazon.
Kids don't know about the Amazons and the YouTubes. But anyway, you just go on there and you click on your chemical concoction, and you got to wait 12 days for it to clear customs, and next thing you know, you're in your mom's basement eating your boogers, you mix it up, and you make Barry Bonds hit 73 fucking home runs at 45 years old, and Roger Clemens' skull grows sick.
Yeah.
That's a high school biology, class.
Right.
So, getting to my last point, okay, I think that most of the stuff cleaning up the time will tell. Next year's Worlds, that is either in Turkmenistan or Kazakhstan. somewhere where cheating's rampant.
Listen,
okay?
if the Reddit weightlifting forum is to be trusted, and I like to think that it is
deep with knowledge.
deep
son.
with knowledge,
Ooh.
they got Turkmenistan in the thread.
All right.
Now, I'm not going to. They have never steered me wrong.
All right.
The Reddit weightlifting thread.
No matter where it's at. Hey, check that out too. It's a good one too. I get accused all the time of being like some person, and I'm actually not on it. But
I've never posted, but I read it all the time.
People always like send it to me. They're like, "Did you see this?" And it always ends up being true.
Yep.
I got accused one time because I knew some insider information, and they're like, well, "You're the only person we told." I'm like, I swear I didn't tell anybody.
Is that the one I sent you? I sent
Yes,
I sent you from Reddit. I'm like, I saw this on Reddit.
Yeah, is this true? Yeah, get on the Reddit thread. So if the weightlifting championships are
held
in
Turkmenistan,
we have the Turkmenistan SADA,
right?
Whatever it is. Will there be positive tests? Will there be cheating? Will there be doping? And more importantly, will there be world records? Because
I will put my money down. There will be very few positive tests.
I'm going to agree. And I'm also gonna say that there's gonna be a lot of world records broken.
Yes.
And that'll be new weight classes. So there will be all new records.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Compared to the next closest class, records will be smashed.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see. We'll see if the sport's cleaned up or not. But I think that we're on a slippery slope here still with the corruption and like the underhandings and all this stuff. I think some of it's a facade and to steal from Barry Bonds' book, A Game of Shadows. So, but let me ask you this. You're a casual viewer at home.
Which I am. Love it.
Would you rather see Ilya's 242 clean and jerk live or Lash's 220 snatch live?
I would say Lash's 220 snatch. There's just something about the snatch. And this is just getting to the heart of weightlifting.
Whoa.
There's something about taking 220, the smoothness off the floor, all in one motion. I'm a sucker for a just well executed snatch. Now, because it's 220 kilos, it makes it even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm, gun to my head, I'm saying Lash's 220 snatch.
So here's the deal. 3 weeks ago, I watched a 242 clean and jerk from behind the stage.
Right.
We watched Fernando Reese do it with AO,
yeah.
right? We had lifters in that session, and I was like, I ain't missing this.
No.
That dude smashed 242. You know it's a real deal when the jury tells you to put the green plates inside the collars because it's going to come off the bar. Which, by the way, it's about time for a bigger bar.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to go to a 25 kilo bar that's 8.5 feet long. I mean, it's just going to have to happen. But imagining a guy doing that's only 94 kilos is just amazing. And Hook Grip's best slow motion video in the history of slow motion videos is Ilya's 242. And he did it, and we all knew he was on drugs.
Yeah.
But I'll also say this: if you look at what he tested positive for, they should give him another medal.
The lowest
because
level.
he had like B-rate drugs, right? Like, man, and that also makes me think that he didn't fail the test. That they just kind of like, we need to fail you because we know you're doing a bunch of other shit, but we didn't actually give you the drug test. There's a lot of people saying that he went from the warm-up room, the back room, to the medal stand to gone. There's multiple people saying that he never even took the damn test.
At Worlds, when he hit 242?
When he hit his 242.
Okay.
Said like the media got around him, he never got escorted. I don't know if that's true. That happened.
Yeah, who knows?
Other side of the world.
I don't want to digress, but you have one of the most impressive lifts that I saw in recent memory was Sincrayan's 217 at Rio. The way he stood up with 217, I don't think I can stand up faster with 70 kilos.
Right?
I mean, he just bang out of the hole. And again, he comes in, he tests positive in Rio.
Yep.
Did it make my kind of just visceral reaction to that? I mean, I was awestruck.
So what happens? And look, we all you're not a fan of weightlifting if you don't like big lifts.
No.
You're not there like. You don't ever want to see red lights.
No.
The only time I want to see red lights is when they drop the bar and they never had it above their head.
If I see
Right?
one more good lift overturned
God.
by a jury, I'm going to jump in front of a car.
I'll flip a table over. At some point, a table's getting flipped over. But if let's say the sport's clean, it's 100% cleaned up, okay, and we're watching Worlds from some Eastern European country, supposedly Turkmenistan,
Okay.
and Ilya's there, and Lasha's there, and Ilya comes out and clean and jerks 215, and Lasha comes out and snatches 190. Are you still happy?
I mean, it goes back to.
And let's say they look like shit doing it.
That's what it goes back to if Ilya's coming in and he's doing 215, 220, and it's a competitive class. Like, somebody hits 219, somebody hits 2. I mean, the sport is the sport. I mean, the numbers. I'll be the first to admit I love to see big lifts. That's why I like weightlifting.
Right.
But I also think there's something to be said for the competition. Like, if you're coming in and you hit 219, and I come in, I hit 220, and I win by 1 kilo. It's still competitive. It's still competition.
Absolutely.
But I mean, there's just something. He hits that when he hits 242. When you got 239, you got 240, and then he comes in and hits 242 to take it.
Oh, it's like three world records back to back to back.
Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
I mean, that was awesome.
You can't beat that.
You cannot beat it.
And to go back to I really need to figure out her name, but the British chick that does all the Eurosport announcing, when she was like flaming Ilya, because in between the snatch and the clean jerks, remember he snatched. He snatched. He was in like fourth in the snatch.
Yeah,
right?
He comes in like 180,
which is
180s,
normal,
which
right?
is normal,
Basically, he's like just trying to not bomb out snatching, and so he's back there. He's like posted on Twitter. Okay, so like they're pulling that up on the screen, and he's like dancing around techno style, waving to the cameras, all shit. And this lady's like flaming him, but like he should be focused and da. Get off my lawn, like total old person type shit, and. You're like, in the back of your mind, you're like, of course he's having a great time. He's about to go out here and break a world record and beat everybody by 40 kilos.
I mean, what's the saying? Snatches win medals, but clean and jerks win championships. I mean,
that's right.
When you have that Ilya clean and jerk, or you're one of those guys who has that gigantic clean and jerk, you just hold water. You hold water in the snatch. You don't bomb out. You go in, you play consistent, you stay with it, you come in fourth, who cares? Like, you got your fourth, your fifth. You're going to come in and just smash a world. That's like the thing we've always talked about. Everybody talks about how he's the nicest guy in the back room.
Right.
Hey, thanking everybody, hey, how you doing?
Right.
I would be too, because I know I'm going to beat everybody.
I'm going to crush you,
I'm going
right?
to crush everybody.
Yeah, I don't hate you because you're just I'm just so much better than you. Well, it's like we had our guy that worked here, like he went and hung out with them, and said he was like fun. He said he was like there's this cool guy to hang out with, talk to, listen to techno. They were both in techno, and basically just talk about weightlifting the whole time.
Talk about spiky hair.
Right? Balding at 22. I mean, it's like...
He's got a full head now. As a balding man, I'm a little jealous.
So I think it'll be interesting to see the kind of numbers he does. He... Also, like, when you're as experienced as him, some time off is like that dude takes planned years off anyway.
Well, he takes 1 to 2 years off after.
So he just does it. So the idea that he could come back and smash weights and do something in the 240 range.
Well, he's back on training now. If you followed the Instas, he's back. He's back hitting 7 kilos for reps.
Oh, I mean, things are getting real.
Trust, he'll be back. At 170. In short order, and then to 220 right after that.
Next.
All things Jim did I don't know if you followed it. They did the track when he did last time on his build up.
Yeah.
It was unreal. He comes in, he's working with the bar for 2 weeks, then it's 70, then it's 90, then it's 140. It's like next thing you know, he turns around, 220. He's got 220 on the bar.
So it's progressive overload. This is how this works. Kids, you can do this.
You guys have read the books.
Is this good? Look at that. And you could, God, we could do a whole podcast on Ilya's weightlifting, and we really could.
Yeah.
But before the 242, and like think about young Ilya, still thin, balding, spiky hair.
Right.
There was like an argument for a long time that he was never doing a legal jerk because of his forced oscillation on the bar.
I can see it. I mean,
like it was worse in his early days.
When he was in 85,
yeah, for sure. It was like you could see he was doing it like
you could tell he was doing it on purpose. He was hitting that. He was using it. again, I mean, that's a
But people were passing it.
absolutely.
At international meets.
International meets.
Which makes me think, again, everybody wants to see made lifts.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see dudes get called for press
Oh
out.
yeah, you get. I mean,
Nope, oscillated.
Oh,
220 down. The man oscillated his bar.
who was the Iranian, the 94, who picked the bar up off the floor after the zeros hit, and they counted it.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they were like, oh, we look down, we look up. It was
I'm good with
moving.
it. I'm good
I don't
with it.
care.
I don't care. He made the lift. I mean,
you want a timeout? Like that's what you're cheering for, a timeout?
we've talked about it. If it's not egregious, if it's not an egregious press
Get your
out,
hand off that button.
Get your hand off
God,
the button.
stop being the shit.
It's just the old man.
Rules are rules.
Yeah. Like I got
All
my,
right.
I got my
get it.
referee certification in '76.
Right.
And I got Ed the Rock Hockley syndrome. I got to get my face out there. I got to get much camera
Well,
time
you know
as
what?
possible.
You want to make the sport more exciting as if it was about the ref. God, that's about as lame as somebody thinking the sport would be more exciting if it was about the coaches.
God, you see me in the back room. I'm eating and falling asleep.
Here's Doug coaching. Oh, he's eating gummy bears.
Yeah.
Thrilling stuff.
Take another one.
Oh, man. But short answer. Ilya comes back and does 220. It's no well, I mean, even if he just doesn't look.
If he doesn't look
like Ilya,
yeah. Doesn't look like the fridge.
Right. So, I mean, I'll give you a good example. Like Piros' last Olympics.
Okay.
We were used to watching Piros.
Yeah.
And now, granted, his down performance still got him bronze, right? But I remember watching him, I was like, this isn't Piros anymore. Yeah. And his was a result of age. Yeah, I mean, he just had
when you compete in
four Olympics, right? Right. I mean, you're old, more or less.
Father Time is undefeated.
Undefeated. But I would have a hard time because Ilya's not old if he comes back and he does like a 220. It'd be tough.
I mean, you could make the argument that if he comes back and he does 220 and still wins, that he's now a clean athlete, and he comes back and beats a clean field. Because at the end of the day, these guys are not. They're still the best lifters.
I'd like to point something out here. Kendrick Fair's been flamed a lot. He got flamed for a lot of shit that he said. Mm-hmm. People accuse him of being on drugs all the damn time. Never even come close to failing a drug test. And he was very outspoken about it, about people taking drugs. People lost their shit when he put a Facebook or Twitter up. This was like in 2008, 10, something like that. That he thought that if you were using drugs, you would gain an additional 10% on your lifts. And I find that interesting because if you take 10% off of Ilya's lifts, Kendrick's not that far behind.
No, I mean,
it's like, damn, mate, what if he's right?
I mean, I'm a huge Kendrick fan. My first meet was I don't know what it was. It was maybe the American Open. It was in Columbus. It was at the Arnold. It had to be 2011 because I got the bridge to London, so it was before the 2012. Yes. I got the shirt, and that was the one where he passed out in the squat jerk.
Yeah.
Since that, because that was the first time I had been really bad. I had done basic weightlifting in the weight room for football and things like that, and CrossFit and stuff like that. But I never actually seen a high level meet like that. So I'm a sucker for Kendrick Fair's lift. But I agree. I mean, he's right there.
I mean,
you also have to take. When you're stepping the shoes of the athletes and you know that X, Y, and Z are competing dirty and you're competing clean because you've been tested 47 times in the last 48 days.
Right. You have enough blood to keep the blood center in business.
It's got to be it's got to be a burn.
Actually, 2 summers ago, I had this conversation with Travis Cooper, and we were talking, they're out of Juggernaut, we were talking about this, and he goes, you can look at it one of 2 ways, and this was a really good point. He said, you can look at it like, USADA's trying to catch me, or you can look at it as USADA's trying to prove my innocence, right? And so he was like, I just choose the latter, He's like, you test me, fine, shit, I ain't nothing to hide. And I think that so to come full circle, I want to see big lifts. If you take drugs out of it, you also can really get the picture that Team USA is going to look a lot different on the international
Absolutely.
stage. And like, look at all the talent we got coming up. And you can just see the table being set for us to do some just crazy good things with Harrison, CJ, Maddie, just all the 48 girls, all the 75 girls, like those classes.
You
are
saw
just
it.
tough.
You saw it in at the Worlds.
At the Worlds, right?
I mean, you take out
Much
those
better
9
placement.
countries.
Right, you're right in the mix.
You're right in the mix.
You're right in the
longer.
mix.
You're no longer what 21st or
Yeah, right.
26th
When it
or
was just-
something.
yep.
Now you're right there. I mean,
You're right there.
You're getting a full team.
You're right there
in the Tokyo.
Exactly. So obviously being a fan of Team USA first, like that's what I want. I just hope that the cleanup is actually the cleanup, because my fear is it's a lot.
You
of
don't
work
want to be a
for
halfway
not.
clean. You don't want what it was like in 2016, where
Exactly.
you have the Americans and Canada and Western Europe and all these other countries that are clean, and then everybody else is not.
Right.
Because then you're going to be, hey, we're hitting 200, 214 as a 94
Right.
against 246. I mean,
Right.
come on, or
Right.
235.
Right.
It's
Even
come
right.
on.
Yeah. I mean, I love to see it. I'd love to see it clean. I'd love to see U.S. medals.
Absolutely. Who doesn't like to see U.S. on the podium?
Best country in the world, on the planet. Doug, do you have anything to add to our audience before we sign out of here?
I do not, Dan.
I think we
had
pretty
I
well-
had a blast.
I think we pretty well smashed some IWF talk.
This is my first podcast as someone who's listened to thousands
Wow.
and thousands of podcasts at the dog park,
Dude.
walking to Lift Lab.
Next
My
time we
first
do this,
podcast.
we'll let you tell the listeners why you stopped listening to Joe Rogan. All right, we're out.